2 in the morning, and a warehouse the size of 10 football fields is wide awake. Hundreds of robots are crossing paths right now, and not one of them is waiting for a signal from a boss. So who decided this was safe enough to carry your package tomorrow morning? You'll see the same pattern in a battery that starts charging before anyone's hand reaches the panel. In 3 billion-year-old Martian clay, a rover found a molecule nobody sent it looking for. And a scan in a small clinic caught a shadow no doctor had looked for yet. None of them had one decision-maker. That's not a coincidence. Nobody is steering this. Not tonight, not anywhere in this film. Here's the rule, plainly. Progress isn't run by anyone. It's 1,000 small decisions made without asking permission. The future isn't a single headline. It's 100 quiet Tuesdays in a lab until one of them reaches you. So let's start smaller than a warehouse. Just one light blinking with no switch attached to it. That single light with no switch starts here in a lab outside Brisbane on a bench nobody's touched in the last 10 minutes. In November 2025, a University of Queensland team wired together a prototype they call a quantum battery. Instead of one cell storing the charge, dozens of tiny linked cells share the load at the same moment. Energy doesn't queue up waiting its turn. It loads across the whole lattice in the same instant. Her hand hasn't moved, and the panel's indicator blinks on anyway. No single cell decided that. The charge decided it together. Strange, watching a machine agree with itself. Nanda Kumar's team measured it, charging roughly 100 times faster than a standard lithium cell of the same size. Early lab work, years from your pocket. But it's the same chemistry sitting dark in your phone tonight. And that same quiet pattern shows up again, this time 300 million kilometers from Brisbane. That same blinking light crosses 300 million kilometers of empty space before it turns up again. In September 2025, a rover drilled into clay 3 billion years old and found something it wasn't built to explain. The onboard chemistry instrument flagged a molecule shaped like an early building block of biology. Not a fossil, not a shape. A pattern of carbon bonds that, on Earth, only shows up where life has been at work. Every scientist on the call said the same careful sentence first. This is not proof of life. Just chemistry doing what chemistry does, given pressure and enough time. No lab technician mixed those bonds. No designer chose that clay bed 3 billion years ago. Just a gradient, warmth here, water there, and molecules sorting themselves into what survives. Same rule as the battery lab, written into rock instead of circuitry. Nothing here ever had a boss, only conditions. If nature never needed anyone in charge, the next question is whether your own workday still does. So if nature runs on no boss, the next stop is a floor where thousands of machines test that same rule at rush hour. Down here, thousands of these carts move stock every hour of the shift. Each one only sees a few meters of floor around it, never the building's full map. No dispatcher upstairs is plotting any of their routes in advance. At an intersection, 2 carts arrive within the same half-second. They negotiate crossing rights between themselves in milliseconds. Now picture one of them meeting a cracked package on the belt. It doesn't call upward for instructions. It votes with the machines nearest to it. In under a second, the whole cluster reroutes around it. No alarm, no supervisor. She watches the whole floor's rhythm on her tablet instead of steering any single cart. Order volume passed what any one planner could track years ago, so nobody tries anymore. So who decided it was safe to let this floor run itself with nobody in charge? No one, and that's the whole point. That same shift, from one center deciding to thousands of small local votes, is already running inside your own body, one cell at a time. The same shift from central control to local decisions was already happening in your own body, one cell at a time. In Minnesota, a diagnostic clinic feeds routine scans into a system built to notice what a first glance might miss. It was trained on hundreds of thousands of scans, learning shapes no radiologist reads twice in a career. This time, the software flagged a shadow years before any doctor could have caught it by eye. 3 years early, before symptoms, before a shadow a trained eye would even think to chase. The clinic calls this early stage. Still in trials, not a promise yet. No algorithm signs a diagnosis. A radiologist still has to look, question the flag, and confirm it. Credit splits the way this story keeps repeating. Not the doctor alone, not the software alone. A battery cell, a rover's sensor, a warehouse robot, a scan. None of them waited for one boss to notice. None of this, the battery, the rover, the warehouse, the scan, runs without something nobody thinks about. None of it, the battery, the rover, the warehouse, the scan, runs a single day without something nobody ever thinks about. Every chip you have ever used spends most of its energy just moving numbers from memory to a processor and back. At the Fab Lab, engineers are testing a chip that skips that trip entirely. The memory cells themselves do the arithmetic, right where the data already sits, instead of shipping it across the board first. That single change is why a sensor can decide something on its own, instead of asking a distant server for permission. An indicator light on the rig pulses on its own, test cycle, untouched. Researchers building this kind of in-memory architecture report roughly a 10-fold drop in the energy any device burns per decision. That saved energy is the entire budget a battery, a rover, a warehouse robot, or a scan has to think for itself. Every one of these rooms is running the same experiment, just with different instruments. Different instruments, same experiment. So here's what that experiment actually is. A battery outside Brisbane learned to charge itself without one cell ever taking the lead. A rover on Mars found a molecule in clay that no one told it to look for, using rules written for a very different kind of soil. A warehouse floor moved thousands of packages tonight, and not one router upstairs picked the route. That's the answer to the question this film opened with. Who was driving the warehouse? Nobody. Thousands of small votes were. A clinic in Minnesota caught a shadow on a scan 3 years before any doctor's eye would have. Under every one of those rooms sits a chip built to think exactly where it remembers. None of it had one boss. All of it had a system. That small amber light you kept seeing was never one lab switch. It was the whole pattern, blinking in 100 rooms at once. The future isn't a headline. It's 100 quiet Tuesdays until one reaches you. So tell us, what's one small decision you made today on autopilot without ever really deciding it?